Let's begin lesson 5 of the Earth atmosphere topic. Here's today's starter, testing your memory from last lesson. Pause the video and put the sentences in order. Pause it now. Here we go with the answers. Formation of fossil fuels. Firstly, plants and sea creatures died. They formed a layer in the ocean. They were covered in rock and compressed. Then over millions of years, they turned into fossil fuels. Formation of limestone. It was shell creatures that died. They formed a layer in the ocean. They were covered in rock and compressed. Then over millions of years, they turned into a sedimentary rock called limestone. Now we learnt last lesson that when fossil fuels and limestone are formed, carbon is trapped inside them, but it's a slow process. It takes millions of years. Today's driving question is, what is driving the greenhouse effect? We're going to look at how carbon dioxide causes global warming. So last lesson we looked at whenever we burn hydrocarbons, carbon dioxide is produced from petrol, from diesel, from other fuels. But also we use fossil fuels in many of our power stations. So when we burn fossil fuels to generate electricity, more carbon dioxide is put into the atmosphere. A lot of our central heating runs on natural gas. When that is burned, carbon dioxide goes into the atmosphere. So through fuels, through power stations, through central heating, we are putting a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and the percentage is increasing all of the time. Now, we know as scientists, we are measuring that the average surface temperature of the Earth is increasing, and it matches the pattern of increasing carbon dioxide. But the question we're going to answer in today's lesson is, all right, we can see there's a pattern. Carbon dioxide is going up, the Earth's temperature is going up. That's called global warming. But why does carbon dioxide have that effect? Now, this is all to do with greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is not the only greenhouse gas, but greenhouse gases are increasing in the atmosphere and they trap heat. A greenhouse gas is a gas which traps heat in the atmosphere, and that leads to something called the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It traps heat in the atmosphere, causing the greenhouse effect. So a greenhouse gas traps heat in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide traps heat in the atmosphere, but there are other greenhouse gases doing the same thing. For example, methane, which is given out sometimes through meat production, and that is another. For example, methane, which is a gas given out during meat production, is another greenhouse gas which traps heat in the atmosphere. Nitrogen oxides, also sulfur dioxide. There are other chemicals which trap heat in the atmosphere. Also, water vapor is another one. Carbon dioxide has a formula CO2. It's a greenhouse gas. Methane has a formula CH4. It's a greenhouse gas. Even water vapor in the atmosphere will trap heat, so it also counts as a greenhouse gas. A greenhouse gas traps heat in the atmosphere. Right, pause for a memory check. Name 3 greenhouse gases and also their chemical formula. Pause it now. Here we go. It was carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, water vapor, H2O. Also, you could have said carbon monoxide, also nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide. And we will learn more about those gases later in the topic. Now, what is the greenhouse effect? A greenhouse gas traps heat. We have this other keyword, the greenhouse effect. Now, a greenhouse is designed to trap heat, and it's trapping heat from the sun. This helps to keep the plants warm inside the greenhouse. Now, the Earth's atmosphere has a similar effect. It traps heat from the sun, keeping us warm. And it's not just carbon dioxide that does that, the other greenhouse gases do it as well. Okay, so the greenhouse effect is the way that the Earth's atmosphere traps heat from the sun. Now, that is absolutely essential for life on Earth. If that didn't happen at all, there would be no heat, there would be no warmth for us to survive. So we do need the greenhouse effect to make sure there is some heat trapped in the Earth's atmosphere. But as the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases increases, so the amount of heat being trapped increases, and that can then become a bad thing if it happens too much. So the greenhouse effect is the way that the Earth's atmosphere traps heat from the sun because greenhouse gases can trap heat from the sun. But as the amount of greenhouse gases increases in the atmosphere, more and more heat is trapped and the Earth gets warmer and warmer. Okay, Hinge question, pause the video. Why is the Earth getting warmer? Is it A, B, C or D? Pause it now. The correct answer was, of course, D. There are more greenhouse gases trapping heat in the atmosphere than there used to be. So more greenhouse gases trapping heat increases the amount of the greenhouse effect, makes the Earth warmer and warmer. Okay, matching keywords and meanings. Pause the video and you don't have to write this down, but just match the keyword to its meaning. So pause the video for long enough to make sure you understand all 4 keywords. Pause it now. Let's have a look. A greenhouse gas is a gas which traps heat in the atmosphere. The greenhouse effect is when the whole atmosphere traps heat, keeping the Earth warm. Global warming is the rise in temperature of the whole Earth. Climate change, we're going to look at more closely in a future lesson, is the increase in destructive weather events, which is something that happens more when the Earth gets warmer. Okay, so here they are lined up next to each other. 1 was B, 2 was A, 3 was D, and 4 was C. Now, why does it happen? How does a greenhouse gas trap heat? Well, molecules of CO2 are able to absorb heat. A molecule is a small group of atoms bonded together. And in fact, it is the bonds between the atoms which absorbs heat. And they do that in the form of infrared waves, sometimes called thermal radiation. CO2 molecules are able to absorb infrared waves, thermal heat radiation. Here is a graph showing that carbon dioxide will absorb waves with a wave number in this part of the spectrum. That's the infrared part of the spectrum. Carbon dioxide molecules are able to absorb infrared waves, sometimes called thermal radiation, which means heat energy radiation. So heat energy travels in the form of infrared waves. Now, when when waves travel from the sun, there's a whole mixture of waves that travel. And those waves have short wavelengths. It's not specifically infrared, so it doesn't get absorbed by carbon dioxide on the way down from the sun. So the Earth's waves travel through the atmosphere down to the surface of the Earth. The short wavelengths do not get absorbed. Okay, so the carbon dioxide and the other greenhouse gases do not immediately absorb the waves from the sun because the waves from the sun have short wavelengths that do not get absorbed by CO2. Now, when the waves hit the Earth's surface, it warms the Earth's surface. The Earth's surface gets warm. Now, any hot object like the Earth will start to emit infrared. So you might be more familiar with infrared from these sorts of infrared camera images. The hotter an object, the more infrared radiation it gives out. So when the sun's rays warm the Earth gets hot, it starts to give out infrared. Hot objects emit, that means give out, heat energy in the form of infrared waves. So infrared waves have long wavelengths. They're at the longer wavelength end of the spectrum. Okay, so the energy that travels from the sun tends to have shorter wavelengths, but when the Earth gets hot, it starts to give out infrared, and the infrared has longer wavelengths. Okay, so as the Earth gets hot, the Earth's surface gets hot, it gives out infrared. That infrared waves, they rise up from the surface and they do get absorbed by carbon dioxide because carbon dioxide absorbs longer wavelength infrared. Okay, so infrared waves have a longer wavelength. They do get absorbed by carbon dioxide. So the greenhouse gases actually trap the heat which is rising up from the Earth's surface because the Earth's surface is hot. So infrared can be absorbed by CO2 molecules because it absorbs longer wavelengths. Okay, a lot of information there. So here's a true or false quiz. I'm going to put all the information, all of the questions on the screen, pause the video and decide if each one is true or false. Pause it now. Here we go. Waves that travel from the sun have short wavelengths. True. Short wavelengths get absorbed by the atmosphere. False. They pass straight through. Short wavelengths pass through the Earth's atmosphere and heat up the Earth. That is true. The Earth's surface gets warm and emits infrared waves. That is true. The Earth gets hot, it gives out infrared. Infrared has short wavelengths. False. It has long wavelengths. The greenhouse gases can absorb infrared waves with long wavelengths. True. Okay, now we're going to try and put an answer into sentences. Don't write it down, just think of it. How does the energy from the sun end up being trapped by the greenhouse gases as part of the greenhouse effect? How does the greenhouse effect work? Try and include the idea of waves and long wavelength and short wavelength in your answer. Don't write it down, think it in sentences. Pause it now. Let's have a look at my answer. I said, heat energy travels from the sun in the form of waves which have short wavelengths. The short waves pass through the atmosphere. They heat the Earth's surface. The Earth's surface gets warm. The Earth's surface gives out infrared. Infrared have longer wavelengths, so the greenhouse gases can absorb them. So greenhouse gases trap heat by absorbing long wave infrared that's being given out by the Earth's surface after it gets warmed by the sun. Okay, which statement is false? 3 correct statements, 1 false statement. Is it A, B, C, or D? Pause it now. Let's have a look at the answer. Right, A, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane are all greenhouse gases. True. Greenhouse gases trap thermal energy and keep the Earth warm. True. D, the increasing concentration of greenhouse gases is cause of global warming. True. By burning carbon-based fuels, we increase the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. So C was the false answer. Okay, it is time for the writing task. So as you have been doing throughout this topic, go back to the first assignment, which was a Google Doc exercise book that has got everything you need for all of the lessons. So open that Google Doc exercise book from the first assignment, scroll through it until you find lesson 5, the driving question, the describe, explain, use, combine are already filled in, along with some sentence starters. So add your notes in there. Go to Google Classroom, click on the first assignment, Google Doc exercise book, and then add your notes for lesson 5. Here's what you will be doing. Describing, explain. For yellow, use your understanding to explain a situation in more detail. Then for blue, combining difficult ideas together. Okay, so you should now pause this video, go to your Google Doc in Google Classroom, write in your notes, use the sentence starters to help you, and then after you've done that, come back to this video to find the answers. So pause this video, go and write your notes now. Okay, I'm going to move this along to start going through the answers. Please do correct any mistakes. If you've got something wrong, you will need to change it and make sure that you've got correct notes in your Google Doc. Here we go. A greenhouse gas is a gas that traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere. So some examples: carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, water vapor, H2O. There is also carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and sulfur dioxide, which we'll look at in a future lesson. The greenhouse effect is when heat is trapped in the Earth's atmosphere by greenhouse gases. The greenhouse effect is important for life on Earth because we need a certain amount of heat to be trapped in the atmosphere for life to survive. We need the greenhouse effect. But increasing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere increases the greenhouse effect, causing global warming and climate change. We'll learn more about climate change next lesson, but here we go. Greenhouse gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. This is called the greenhouse effect. If the amount of greenhouse gas increases in the atmosphere, this traps more heat than normal in the atmosphere. This causes the temperature of the whole Earth to rise. We call that global warming. And as we'll learn next lesson, global warming causes climate change across the whole Earth. So the more greenhouse gases there are in the atmosphere, the more heat is trapped, increasing the greenhouse effect, causing the Earth to get warmer. We call that rise in temperature global warming. Then, trying to combine in ideas about long wavelengths and short wavelengths. Greenhouse gases trap heat in the form of infrared waves. Okay, but the radiation that comes directly from the sun is shortwave, so it is not absorbed by greenhouse gases. Shortwave radiation from the sun passes through the atmosphere, heating up the surface of the Earth. The surface of the Earth gets hot and emits infrared radiation, which has longer wavelength. That is what gets absorbed by the greenhouse gases, the long wave infrared radiation, which is emitted by the Earth's surface. Okay, today today I have achieved. Have you described keywords and facts, explained the main idea, used your understanding to explain a situation? Have you combined difficult ideas together? For example, I achieved explain because I can explain the meaning of the greenhouse effect and why it's important. Today I achieved use because I can explain why the increasing amount of greenhouse gases causes global warming. We'll look at climate change in more detail next lesson. I achieved combine because I can explain the greenhouse effect in terms of long wave and short wave radiation. Whatever you've achieved today, thank you for your effort. Well done. Putting effort in and trying is the most important thing. You can now go back to Google Classroom and click on the classwork assignments and mark as done or turn in for video lesson 5. Don't submit your Google Doc yet because you need to keep that open for the rest of the topic, but you can now complete the short quiz for lesson 5. Well done for your work today. Good work. That's it for this week, and there will be more lessons next week. So keep up your effort. Well done, Year 9. Well done, Year 10 Trilogy students. Good work today. Thank you very much. Well done. See you next time.